And we will go ahead and call this to order. And so good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our roundtable meeting. And thank you all for being here. As a reminder, tonight's meeting, we will have hybrid access with members attending in person and the public welcome to attend in person or remotely. For members of the public who wish to speak to the membership, please fill out a speaker's slip located at the entrance. And for those attending remotely, please use the Zoom raise hand feature to be recognized during public comment. So we'll now proceed to roll call and confirm attendance and verify that we have a quorum present to conduct official business. Diane, please proceed to roll call and confirm that we have a quorum.
Thank you, Chair. City and County of San Francisco Board of Supervisors. Absent. City and County of San Francisco Mayor's Office.
Present.
City and County of San Francisco Airport Commission.
Present.
San Mateo Board of Supervisors. Present. CCAG Airport Land Use Commission. She's present. Thank you. Town of Atherton. Absent. City of Belmont.
Present.
City of Brisbane. Absent. City of Burlingame.
Present.
Town of Colma. Absent. City of Daly City. Absent. City of East Palo Alto. Absent. City of Foster City. City of Half Moon Bay.
Present.
Town of Hillsborough. Present. City of Menlo Park.
Present.
City of Millbrae.
Present.
City of Pacifica. Absent. Town of Portola Valley. Absent. City of Redwood City.
Present.
City of San Bruno. Absent. City of San Carlos.
Present.
City of San Mateo. Absent. City of South San Francisco. Absent. Town of Woodside. Thank you, Chair. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Diane. So now at this point, we're going to move on to public comment on items that are not on tonight's agenda. So this next item on the agenda is public comment on items not on the agenda. This is an opportunity for the public to address the roundtable on matters not listed on the agenda. We ask that you please keep your comments to 2 minutes and note that while roundtable members can't and will not discuss or act on these items tonight, your input is always valued. So with that, Diane, please read the instructions for public comments on this item and let us know if there are any public comments from members in the room.
For members of the public that would wish to participate, please see the full instructions printed on the full packet, agenda packet. For those participating on Zoom, please use the *9 feature to indicate your desire to speak or the raised hand feature. Thank you.
So we'll call up the first public speaker.
Yes. So we have received 4 public speaker slips for in the room, and currently no raised hands on Zoom. First speaker, Miss Elisa.
Before we start the public comment, just one quick ask. If you could just tell us what city you're from, because I know there's Pacifica.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to start by giving an apology for my probably wavering and wobbly voice. I'm a bit nervous and a lot emotional about what I'm here for, the increase in air traffic over mine and others' neighborhoods. My name is Elisa, and I've lived towards the top of Nelson Avenue in the Manor District in Pacifica for 20 years. I'm here with my husband, who has lived there for 37 years. We're under the primary departure path of what has become an extreme increase in air traffic leaving SFO and at times arriving. We became aware sometime in April that runway work has been occurring at SFO since late March, and that they claim there would only be a 30% increase in flights. We believe it is significantly more than that. We actually started noticing an increase around September of 2025. But what has been occurring since the beginning of April is absurd. It feels like torture because there's nothing we can do about it, and it's become intolerable. The sky seems almost never to stop rumbling. From one day to another, I've documented by hand and audio the frequency and number of flights. At the minimum, there's 1.5 to 2 minutes between planes passing by our house. I've recorded 17 planes in a 30-minute period. I read SFO jets fly over Pacifica and valleys at approximately 3,000 feet, and even at that altitude, the engines and low-frequency rumbling will vibrate and rattle houses. Most of the planes we look up on the web tracker are below that at 2,000 and even 1,500 feet. I know the FAA has set a minimum of 1,000 feet over urban areas, and that's ludicrous. With some of these planes, you feel like you could almost hit them with a rock. Some of these very early morning flights, which have increased lately, vibrate our bed on our 3rd floor at 2:33 in the morning, 3:11, 3:17, 3:26. I've recorded on my sound app on my phone several planes at max decimals between 77 and 90. Aircraft noise above 45 to 55 decimals triggers chronic stress. And from my research, I found the FAA considers aircraft noise to be significant above 65 decimals. This severe increase has had an extreme negative effect on our lives. We are depressed, stressed, angry, frustrated. Our windows and doors are almost always closed, even on nice days. And we still, day and night, hear and feel the rumbling through our double-pane windows over multiple TVs and appliances that are running. We have a big, beautiful, relaxing backyard that we used to love to spend almost all of our time in, not anymore.
Alyssa, it looks like you're over time, so if you could wrap it up in the next 10 seconds, that'd be great.
10 seconds. Sorry, we don't go out there anymore, not even to enjoy anything. The constant loud noises triggered elevated stress, health issues. Our other neighbors and friends who are here today, he'll be the one to ask for the clear and concise information we're looking for. But if there's anything we'd like to say, I want to drive home to the committee right now. What we are looking for is to please get a confirmation that when this runway work is finished, that we will have confirmation that things will go back to the way that they were before this work started. Well, except for the low flying altitudes, we don't want those either, so.
Thanks for your comment, Alyssa. I'll tell you what, you probably had more to share, so why don't you write us an email to the roundtable?
Yes, I was going to do
And we'll
that.
circulate it to everyone.
Yeah, I was
Thank
gonna
you
do
for your
that. Thank
comment,
you.
though. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So let's call up the next person.
Thank you. Mr. Al Ali.
Hi, my name is Ali Leeds. I'm also from Pacifica. I've lived there for 37 years. It used to be a paradise, but now it's turned into a nightmare, as you've already heard. I mean, the rumbling never stops. It's just, this, you know, I used to go in the backyard, smell the salt air, hear the ocean, waves. I don't hear that no more. All I hear is thunder and smell jet fuel. It's like I'm living in San Bruno at the airport. So I don't know what else I could say. It's just been a nightmare. And I hope we can do something about it, or what letters I have to write to people. I own a construction company. When we're working outside, I can't communicate. It's dangerous to my employees. The airplanes are so low and flying so frequent. I'm trying to give them a measurement, trying to talk to them. You can't talk to anybody. It's maddening. I don't know what else to say. I guess that's it.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you. Mr. Charlie Gochas?
Hi, my name is Charlie Getchis, and I've owned a home in Pacifica in the Manor District for 22 years. I'm also here to talk about the increase in the noise, particularly since the runway work has started. As you've heard, it's supposed to be temporary, but it's causing a lot of issues, stress, and eventually some unmeasured health impacts we're afraid of. We've been told it's temporary, but we need some assurances that the lower takeoffs and the frequency of these flights will in fact go back to how it was before the runway work. I'd also like to know what compelling incentives there are for any airline or the airport to comply with the night hush or the fly quiet programs. It doesn't seem like, you know, if it costs more money for more fuel to take off higher, that they're not going to do it voluntarily. But we're not here to you know, push things to the FAA, because this is a local problem caused by local decisions after the runways were needed to be worked on, and I know that happens periodically, and that's great. But the FAA, everybody in this room knows the FAA is not going to do anything about this, especially currently. One more thing is that when we communicate with the airport, they sometimes get back to us and say, oh, we need you to report this data or talk to us about the flight information. We all know that the airport, as the administrators of the flights, they know when what planes are taking off and where they're going. So we appreciate your time. We know you're all very busy, but we really would like to get some assurances that this will not be a permanent situation. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you. Mr. Remy Tan?
Hello, Remy Tan, resident of Pacific, and these are my neighbors over in the Pacific Manor District, and I've been coming to these meetings for probably over a year, complaining about this, and since the runway construction, it's really ridiculous. I mean, these planes are going over 11 p.m., 12 a.m., 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and as Elise said, every 2-3 minutes. I wish our Samtrans service ran as frequently, or our BART service ran as frequently. We take transit. I mean, it's just, ridiculous, and it shakes the houses. And I've been checking on the, the stopjetnoise.net site, and some of the planes that are supposed to make the turn, kind of the hockey stick turn and go over the bay after they take off from runway 28, are not doing that. I mean, these are 737s, A320, A321s, and the small commuter planes that are able to make that turn. I understand, from the previous liaison, who was a 777 pilot, she says, yes, the big planes, the 777s and some of the heavies can't make that turn safely because of San Bruno Mountain. I get that, but the smaller planes are going over our houses, and they should not. They should be going over the bay and then out through the gate. And then anything going east is also supposed to make that turn. And I've tracked planes that, it says it's going to Houston, going to Newark. I mean, that's east of here last time I checked. So the airport is not, enforcing the standards that they promised us in Pacifica, San Bruno, Daly City and South City. I mean, and so, I'm urging that the airport, keeps its promise, until at least October when this thing is supposed to be all done. And then moving forward, we gotta look at some permanent solutions for the midnight noise. And, I mentioned, I think we need to work with Oakland Airport, because Oakland Airport has a over the water runway, landing and taking off.
Mr. Tam, just to
Yes.
let you know you're over time, so if you could wrap it up.
So,
in the next
I
few
hope
seconds.
in the future we can, do something to move those flights out to Oakland Airport and then put a fast connector between the two airports to have more capacity too.
Thank you, Mr. Tam. Appreciate it. If you have any additional comments, please feel free to send us an email to the roundtable. We'll circulate it.
We have one more virtual hand raised from Miss Darlene Yapley. Miss Yapley?
Good evening. For some reason, the audio is a little bit garbled. It's both for the public speakers as well as the roundtable members and the coordinator. So I don't know what's up, but FYI.
Thank you. We will note that, but did you have a public comment, Miss Yapley?
No.
Thank you.
All right.
There are no other public speakers at this time.
All right, thank you for the final comment. So with that, we have action to set agenda and approve consent items. So next, we're going to move to do that. Do we have any members who would like to pull an item from the consent calendar for separate discussion? No one from the membership? Okay. If there's no additional comments from members, we'll take public comment on these items before opening to a vote for the members to approve the consent calendar. Are there any public comments?
There are no public comments at this time.
All right, so if there's no public comments from any members in the room or on Zoom, I'll look for a motion to approve. Motion to approve the consent agenda. All right, and do we have a second? All right, so we got that approved, and we'll go to vote. Just do a roll call. Okay. So just go ahead and move forward. Okay. No need for, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, there we go. The ayes got it. All right, so with that being said, we'll move to the chair update. I wanted to briefly highlight a few items included in tonight's packet and provide an overview of the evening's agenda. So tonight's meeting includes updates from SFO Director Mike Corncat and the Noise Abatement Office, as well as an informational presentation on advanced air mobility, or AAM, the acronym, and emerging eVTOL technologies. Tonight's packet also includes a recently received FAA letter that responds to our comments submitted regarding the FAA's answer portal, as well as a letter submitted by the Aviation Impact Communities Alliance regarding the FAA Aircraft Noise Advisory Committee. As members may recall, the Roundtable previously submitted comments supporting the reestablishment of ANAC and continued community engagement on national aircraft noise policy discussions. We will continue to monitor these efforts and provide updates to the group. The technical working group will also be holding a workshop on June 11th in Brisbane focused on the Fly Quiet program. We're building on common themes from prior technical working group and roundtable discussions. The session will use a structured, consistent set of considerations developed with Darlene Young and Mary Jo Fressard of the Aviation Impacted Communities Alliance to evaluate proposed program elements. At the last roundtable meeting, members agreed to narrow the revised Fly Quiet elements to those that have the greatest impact on the largest number of residents and are within the control of the airlines and pilots. With new data now available from several of these elements, the workshop will review and refine them to arrive at a final set of recommendations for the consideration of the full roundtable. The discussion will also consider how best to ensure these elements are effectively communicated to SFO-based airlines and pilots so they understand how their decisions affect communities and how the program can properly incentivize and reward strong performance. The technical working group will report back to the workshop the outcomes at the next full roundtable meeting. So with that, we'll move on to tonight's agenda. So that brings us to SFO updates. I'd like to now welcome Mike Corncat, SFO's Airport Director, and Bert Ganong, SFO's Airport Noise Abatement Manager, to provide us with the latest information and updates from San Francisco International Airport.
Thank you, Chair Rinaldi. I appreciate it, and good evening, everyone. It certainly has been a busy time for us. If you look at our Memorial Day traffic, it has been the busiest Memorial Day ever. If you look at passenger volumes, we handled 798,000 travelers over the holiday period. That's a 2.6% increase compared to last year and 3.2% higher than pre-pandemic Memorial Day levels. The full month of May saw 100% of pre-pandemic passenger levels. So that's we're back to 2019 levels as far as passengers. If you look at the number of flights, it's 93%, so 7% short of pre-pandemic flight levels if you compare the month of May to May 2019. The holiday, Memorial Day through Labor Day, we expect about a 3% increase in passenger traffic compared to last summer. So certainly a very busy time for us. The runway repaving project is on track. We expect to complete that no later than October 2nd, and certainly would invite our team to follow up on what we expect of the flight patterns once the construction is complete. It will get better, but we can follow up on what we expect to be of the flight patterns. As far as the arrival rate situation, you may have heard with the Federal Aviation Administration decision to eliminate the side-by-side arrivals that we see, that we used to see at SFO, and now they're a staggered approach rather than a side-by-side approach. It's resulted in a lower arrival rate, and that's also caused increased flight delays beyond the impacts of the runway project itself. And we're continuing to work with the FAA on improving the arrival rates and are hopeful and optimistic of making some progress of the arrival rate situation in the months to come. As far as new routes, we know of one new air service that we expect to get at the end of October 25th. That's been announced in the news. El Al will be starting service to Tel Aviv from SFO. It's going to be a Boeing 787 service arriving in the morning at 6 a.m. And then departing at 2 p.m. With flight number LY49, which is a nod to the San Francisco 49ers. And that is all I have, Chair. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So let's take public comments on this item before any member discussion. Diane, do we have any written or online public comments?
There are no virtual hands raised on Zoom or in the room. Thank you.
All right, so we'll open it up to the membership over here. Was there any members that had any questions or any comments on this particular item? All right, going right here, Member Kralik.
Is this one on? Thank you, Mike, for your report. And it sounds like you will circle back to these specific concerns, citizens, but that your indication is that after the runway construction is complete, that the schedule will revert back to what it was before.
That's correct, Ms. Krolik. The departure patterns will be utilizing more of runway 1, which departs technically to the north, but it's over the bay and over the East Bay. So hopeful that patterns will significantly improve once the runway project is done, but we can certainly follow up on the magnitude of that.
Thank you for that. Are there any other members that wish to ask a question or make a comment? Member Spear.
Is there any mitigation that you can do in the interim for these people that are so dramatically impacted?
Maybe I'd like to invite Bert or Doug to follow up on that as any interim things that we're looking into right now.
Well, to be honest with you, there's very little we can do. We actually, prior to the FAA's changing our arrival rates for safety, had negotiated with the FAA to do more of the night departures, make sure we stayed on those early on, to keep them on a normal track as much as possible. We did know that we would go behind a little bit, but when we had the staggered arrivals, the delay management that the FAA has imposed, most of that went out the door, I have to be honest. As far as our return to regular service, looks like we'll be there on or about October 2nd. After that, there may be some night closures for painting, striping, grooving, things like that, but using the 2828 that we know of at this point. We're hoping that we'll be able to get back. Our planning group, my office, and the FAA have been meeting, trying to see what we can do about getting closer to a normal arrival rate, which would bring the flights back into the realm of a normal daytime and normal nighttime.
Great.
Can I ask one follow-up question,
Sure.
Mike? The staggered arrivals is a new FAA-imposed rule. We've had parallel arrivals going on for 40 years, 50 years. Is there some political ramification to this?
We don't believe that there is. That's correct, that the parallel visual approaches have been going on for a very long time. We understand that the result, that the removal of the parallel visual arrivals and going to the staggered approaches is a result of a safety audit with the FAA, where a rule, and I certainly won't get into the technicalities of that rule, prevents that specific approach pattern from happening, and the safety audit highlighted that. So removing that approach procedure and then going into the staggered approach that we have today was a result of that safety audit.
But you said that you thought that there was some resolution coming of it. What can you share with us what that might be?
There's highly technical work going on as far as looking at staggered distances and things like that in order to optimize. It wouldn't be going back to the visual parallel approaches. It would still be using a staggered approach, but just in a more optimal manner.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other member comments from the roundtable? All right, seeing that there's none, we'll go ahead and move on to the next item, which is advanced air mobility and eVTOL operations.
Through the chair.
Yes. Bert? Oh, Director.
Monthly report out, if you don't mind. I'll be brief, I promise.
Take it away. Now, take your time.
Thank you. All right, so we'll go ahead and share screen. Share. And present. There we go. All right, so be real brief about this. We're going to cover just the 3 programs that we have: repair and replacement, second chance, and expanded eligibility for the noise mitigation program. Wanted to go through really quickly. You can see with the dark blue, that's the current, the light blue is the previous. So we have 60 additional homes within the in design phase. We had 3 units come out of construction because they completed. And then we have quite a few additional homes, just shy of a little over 50 in the total units in progress. The potential eligibility has stayed the same. Total applications received went up by 13, and the satisfaction rate is remaining at 90%. Going through these real quick, we're looking at similar numbers to what we had last time, as well as the cities. South San Francisco having the lion's share at the moment. The Second Chance Initiative, we're looking pretty much straight across the board, similar numbers we had last time. With the exception of the potentially eligible, we had addition of 2. The total applications received and the satisfaction rate are remaining the same. The cities participating within the programs, we're looking at same South San Francisco and San Bruno being the heavyweights. And then when we get into the expanded eligibility initiative, we're looking at additional 2 in units in design. We went down by 17 units in construction because they completed. As you can see over there on the right side with an additional 17 there. And then we went down by 15 units in progress. The total available eligible properties stayed the same at 531. Applications by invitation only remaining that way right now due to the popularity of that program. And the satisfaction rate did go up 3%, so we're pleased that we're almost 100% there. Again, South City taking the lion's share with San Bruno coming in second. And if there are any questions, I will entertain those. Oh, before I get there, if I may, we have 2 members of our noise installation program with us this evening. We have a brand new project manager, Anna Sebert, if you would stand up, say hello to the round table. And another member of her staff, William, is with us this evening as well. So, and I would like to introduce our summer intern who's with us this evening, the gentleman in the back here, Ruben Duenas. So we're pleased to have him join us this evening. Now, any questions?
Opening it up to the round table if there's any questions. Looks like we got a question from Member Gold.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
While I've got you here, Bert, for the airport noise, I know you were spending most of the time on the second chance and the initiative and the installation that we're doing. But I did have some questions for you about noise. When at the last meeting, right at the end, you and I discussed, I made the comment that we don't get any complaints from Woodside. Since the change, we're getting complaints. First time in 19 years, from my experience, at least in government. Suddenly we're starting to see them. So there is something going on, and I'm sort of sensitive to that. But I just wanted to take off on that particular issue, not for Woodside, but actually we don't get a lot of complaints. We do. We're now starting to get some, unfortunately, but nothing like the ones that you're talking about here. So The question I've got for Bert is, are you seeing any changes in the frequency of the citizen complaints from either online or any other form, just since the runway change?
Yes, sir, most assuredly. We've received an increase in noise reports from South San Francisco, Brisbane, Pacifica, and what some people may find surprising is communities much further away. We've been receiving from Roanoke Parks, Sonoma County, lots in Sonoma County, Bodega Bay, and the like. And most of those are, if you look at the tracks, compare them to a year ago, they're about the same, maybe slightly less. But as part of the delay management, the FAA is implementing holding patterns. So those of you not familiar with them, basically it's an oval racetrack holding pattern, they call it, where the FAA will bring the aircraft in higher, circle them, drop them down a level each time they come around, and then they shoot them out the bottom of the stack. That's one way they manage traffic. They don't like doing that, but they will if they have to. It's a tool that they find useful. As far as what we've been trying to help them do is ground delays, working with the airlines to make sure we get ground delays at departure airports so that we don't bring them into the airspace when we're too crowded in the first place.
Okay, thank you. And I also wanted to follow that up on another question that Supervisor Spear actually was picking up on. You have so much data. I mean, it's really remarkable when you stratify the numbers and sort them, and you can do flights and you can pick things out. How difficult would it be to do an analysis of, just since the runway changed, to identify the frequency and intensity that are coming? By intensity, I mean the number of complaints, but also the number of, I know that there can be one person making 100 complaints or 100 people making one complaint. That's different. But is there any way to analyze that so that we could identify the specific communities that are being affected most by this? And then maybe there's some actions that we can take in the interim, because October's
There definitely
a ways
are.
away.
In fact, Ruben, one of his initial assignments I put him on was giving me some percentages of the specific procedure used so that we can see the number of flights on that. One thing I would like to do with that is change that to what we call a heat density plot. Exactly. And so over given communities, over a given hour area, we can see by number of flights per grid mark how hot a given area is.
And then you can sort them by flight or airline, I assume, as well.
We can slice it and dice it many ways, but in general, looking at what's the number right now.
So time is of the urgency here, because, I mean, this is an urgent issue for us and for the communities. Is there anything we can do to get this data out to the roundtable members, and we can at least see if there's, I'm not sure there is anything we could do. You weren't very hopeful in your opening comment, but maybe there is something if we can identify that there's very specific flights that are.
I've seen stranger things. People have come along and mentioned something, and we go, we didn't think of that. But I think we truly have thought of everything with this one. We knew it was going to be a bitter, ugly pill to swallow, and unfortunately, we just had to buffalo our way through it. And in addition to what we had initially going on, it became a deeper issue with the FAA doing the delay management.
Yeah, it's apparently a much bigger issue than I think we suspected was going to happen from this change that the FAA imposed on us. So coincident with the construction and the closing of the runway. So, okay, thank you.
Are there any other member comments? Member Netterhofer?
So I'm not quite sure I can ask this question, but I'm going to ask it and you can tell me if I'm not allowed to. But we're on the subject of noise, and this comes from the previous report that we approved. But the nighttime noise above 55 dBA in April versus March went way above. And it's not just Pacifica, it's a lot of different areas. Is that because, and I'll go to like Foster City, but we're not the takeoff spot, we're the landing spot. And it went way up in Foster City. So I'm not quite sure if it's related to the construction or not because of that.
It definitely is.
Okay.
And it's mainly the delay management issue that the director spoke of a moment ago.
Okay.
So when you have two parallel runways that are 750 feet apart, center line to center line, the FAA has determined that it's not safe at this point to do side-by-side arrivals. Even though we've been doing it for years, we got it down to a nice science. We also used to do what was called offset arrivals. So the right runway, instead of saying 750 feet apart from the other, would go almost a mile into the bay. And that gave a lot of noise reduction to the folks in Foster City and Redwood Shores. Can't do that anymore.
Okay, thank you.
Any other member comments from the roundtable? Member Kralik?
And I'm not clear on why can't we do that anymore, Bert?
Why can we not do which? The offset arrivals?
Correct, yeah. The
Yeah,
mile.
so there is an issue with, I'm getting technical, I know the airport director didn't want me to go there, but, so when they fly down the bay, and they also meet up with the flights coming in from the east, called the Diamond Arrival at the south end of the bay, there is a turn that is made. The FAA did a lot of work on that about 3 years ago to make it a safer procedure. And we used to have, I don't know if you're familiar with the system, but it's called TCAS, it's the Terminal Collision Avoidance System, whereby the aircraft gets alerted, hey, there's another aircraft nearby, you need to, and it gives a resolution. Pull up, turn right, turn left, whatever it needs to be, dive. And so the pilots will follow that procedure to stay away from another airplane. Well, they used to get about 76 a day on that approach. And once they fixed it, it came down to, I think she said, 2 to 5. So that's much safer. And the FAA said, no, we can't use that.
So is this the same safety assessment report that
Yes.
Director Nikornket referred to? So that's what these changes are?
Unfortunately, yes.
Thank you.
Any other member comments? Seeing that there's none, do we have any public comments on this agenda item?
Yes, we have one from Mr. Remy Tan. Mr. Tan?
All right.
Should be a slide switch on top. There you go.
Got it. Hi again, Ramy Tan, Pacifica. Thank you for the detailed report, Bert. Did have a question regarding the, kind of the noise mitigation on the houses, and just wondering if they could change the criteria to, instead of having the 65 dB, average, because we don't hear the average. We hear the 90, 85 dBs as that plane's flying over. And your chart, on these airport director reports, on the first page, show the incidence of 85, 90, and they're all over, South City, Daly City, Pacifica. So we really should actually get those windows and insulation upgrades throughout all of these cities. And I know they shrank the area. Pacifica is not even in those areas anymore. But they're a few blocks from my house. I know they have those windows before before they changed that. So I'm wondering, again, I urge the airport and the roundtable to kind of look at that whole, number and go with the actual incidents and not the averages. Which again, that's not what we hear. We hear the actual incidents of that plane going over, at 85, 90 dB, in the middle of the night. Thank you.
Thank you for public comment. Mr. Tam. Are there any other public comments or raised hands online?
There are no other public comments at this time.
All right, thank you for that. It's obvious that we have a noise issue going on. It's obvious that there's one community in particular that's being affected. It's not every night when we have one of these roundtable events that we have a fully packed house, and especially a former elected mayor from Pacifica, Sue Degree. Saw you back there, just want to recognize you. So it would be nice, technical working group is meeting on the 11th. That's coming up fairly soon. Bert, Mike, Paul, I know you'll be there. It'd be really great if we could find some way to really incentivize these airlines to help work with these communities to do other procedures to try to help abate some of this noise. I know a lot of this is voluntary. We can't force these people to do this, these airlines, but if there's anything that we can weave into the Fly Quiet 2.0 program, I'd be a really big fan of that, at least from this chair right here. So with that being said, we're going to move on to our next item, which is going to be advanced air mobility and eVTOL operations and the discussion of potential roundtable engagement.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity. I have Peter Sorensen from HMMH online to give this presentation on advanced air mobility. It's kind of meant as an update. I know we've had several presentations to date on advanced air mobility, in particular the electric vertical takeoff and landing type vehicles. I want to remind the roundtable that at this time, at least my understanding is there are no such operations proposed or planned or expected at SFO, and that the bylaws of this roundtable say that we're supposed to be focused on or be addressing the operations in and out of the airport. And so what this is meant to be is less of taking action, but more of trying to understand what is advanced air mobility before it actually starts occurring, so that you have a better understanding of what it is, what it isn't. Also, it's going to be more, I think, on the regional jurisdictions and airport and those people working together to figure out what's right for your communities in terms of the operations of these type of vehicles. So with that, we can discuss that more at the end of the presentation, but I'll turn it over to Peter to go ahead and give a brief update on where we are in this country, including where the FAA is on advanced air mobility. So with that, Peter.
Thank you, Gene. So first, let's talk about advanced air mobility. I'll give a brief overview on what advanced air mobility is, what an eVTOL is. Then we'll discuss what's planned for the Bay Area, at least what we know. So who's driving development, and then what are the potential impacts and implications for local communities. Then what are the opportunities for input, coordination, advocacy, and then I'll close with a quick summary on the EIPP. So what is advanced air mobility? So it's a new category of electrified aircraft made for short distance metro travel. And so we have a few of varieties here from Joby at the S4, Archer Midnight, and the Beta Technologies Alia. So eVTOL, electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, are primarily battery powered, but sometimes they also use alternative fuels, but it looks like it's projected that electric will be the primary fuel. They're vertical takeoff, so no runway is necessary. So it's more similar to a helicopter, albeit it might be a little bit shallower of a takeoff, it seems. And so they're designed for trips for 5 to 60 miles within metro regions. They'll be cleaner and quieter than helicopters, especially in cruise, but they're still in their early development. There's hundreds of novel designs, but only a few pursuing FAA certification. So how are these different than helicopters? They're significantly quieter, especially during cruise, then 0 to lower local emissions. And then compared to a small plane, they won't use a runway and they'll be much quieter. So right now there are about 300 companies worldwide trying to design these eVTOLs with $15 billion invested into startups. We're expected a commercial launch maybe by the end of this year, if not in 2027. But currently, there are no commercial passenger services operating as of May 2026. So Joby's the farthest along. They're in stage 4 or 5 of FAA certification. And again, sorry for the very busy slides. This is made to be a reference, but I'll do my best to talk through the points here. So there are 3 OEMs that have publicly announced plans for the Bay Area, and those are Archer, Eve, and Joby. So 2 of them, Archer and Eve, have partnered with United Airlines. Kind of find that's up to $15 million investment for Eve, and then it's not really mentioned for Archer. And then Delta is committed to up to $200 million in Joby. As far as the Bay Area for hubs, Joby hasn't really announced anything, though they have partnerships at LAX and JFK, whereas Eve is talking about an SFO Bay Area vertiport network. Again, no publicly available data, but Archer has announced a couple locations, South San Francisco and Kilroy Oyster Point. And so they have a few more expected routes where they're trying to replace 60 to 90-minute drives with 10 to 20-minute flights. Looks like Eve is trying to have a slightly larger or longer route of 60 miles. And again, Joby hasn't really publicly announced anything, but there was a demonstrated flight around the Golden Gate Bridge in March. Oops, how did that go away? Sorry. So for infrastructure, the Archer has announced kind of like a sea portal concept, trying to combine eVTOL and electric ferry waterfront hubs. They're working with Kilroy Realty. And then both Eve and Joby haven't really discussed their plans publicly. Sorry, I'm having trouble with the screen here. Sorry about that. Why can't I? There we go. Okay, so who is driving AAM development? We kind of talked through the operators already, the United Airlines and Delta. And then I forgot to mention on the last slide that Whisk Arrow, which is located in the Bay Area, has had a first flight in December for the Gen 6 aircraft, but again, no public announcements of Bay Area commercial service. As far as regulators, the FAA still has exclusive authority over the airspace, aircraft certification, and pilot training. FAA has also issued an engineering brief on interim vertiport design standards. However, there's nothing legally binding, and there's an advisory circular to follow. Right now, it seems like a lot of them are following heliport designs, but for the time being, it looks like eVTOL aircraft are going to need a wider footprint than most smaller heliports. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of progresses. Right now, there are no California AAM or air taxi or eVTOL statutes as of June 2026, and only 2 states, Oregon and Florida, have passed AAM legislation. So like I said, vertiport permitting kind of falls under this existing heliport code. As far as infrastructure, it's expected that this is going to require a large amount of electricity. So major grid upgrades and utility coordination will be required. There will be needs for new codes for battery storage, fire suppression, EMS access, as there's no standard set for these lithium-ion eVTOL batteries yet. There's currently no public environmental reviews have been initiated for the Bay Area for vertiport sites. So what are potential impacts and implications for local communities? So for community equity, Joby is kind of estimating, like similar to an Uber Black, that it'll be $3 to $6 per mile with vertiport sightings targeting commercial real estate. Noise we kind of discussed, they should be quieter than helicopters, though high frequency operations may accumulate noise exposure, as we kind of as the technology matures a bit more. Operations and infrastructure, we kind of talked about there's no real environmental review currently for the Bay Area, and that we might require more electrical infrastructure improvements. As far as governance, state and local governments retain authority over vertiport construction, zoning, and permitting. And as stated, California, no California AM statute exists today. So where are there opportunities for input, coordination, advocacy? At the state level, currently there's no AM statutes. So as those are being produced and written, there's opportunity there. There's on-airport vertiport development, ground lease terms and operational hours. And then the Metropolitan Transportation Commission and the Association of Bay Area Governments both have oversight for vertiport siting, equity analysis, and multimodal integration. So now for a quick summary on the eVTOL Integration Pilot Program, or the EIPP. The EIPP is a first of its kind federal initiative launched by the US DOT and FAA, and it was mandated under the Unleashing American Drone Dominance Executive Order. And in March, 8 projects across 26 states were selected. It's been called one of the largest real-world testing environments for next-gen aircraft in the world. So the 8 projects over New York, New Jersey, Texas, Utah, Pennsylvania, Louisiana, Florida, North Carolina, and Albuquerque. There are 4 to 8 of these OEMs selected. And so just here's a map of those states. And California is selected, I think, just because of Joby and WISC's integration into those programs. All right, thank you. Any questions?
Yes. So at this point, we're going to open up for member comment. Are there any members that want to start, or not seeing any just yet? Ben, why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Can I go right into questions?
Sure.
I was curious if you could just talk a little bit more about the timing of commercial launch. I've heard different things about sort of what the realistic time frame is and going through FAA approval. And I understand commercial launch might be happening outside of the U.S. a little bit earlier than it happens here. But when I saw 26, 27, that felt quick. So I'm just curious if you can speak a little bit more to that.
Yeah, so your question was about FAA certification. Sorry, you kind of cut out at the end there.
And timing for commercial launch in the U.S.
Yeah, so with the EIPP, a lot of these departments of transportation and operators have been given access to more resources at the FAA, and so they're trying to continue to progress. But it's still potentially the end of 2026. Joby is at the 4th of 5 stages, but there's still, I think, a lot more to go since we're moving on from traditional wing tube and traditional like helicopter rotors. So, I think 2026 is optimistic, but I expect 2027.
Got it. And one follow-up question.
Sure.
So just looking at the infrastructure, I know you're looking at these 3 operators, and it might not be the full universe of folks who are innovating in this space, but they have 3 different sort of infrastructure plans, and I'm looking over at Mike and thinking about all the different operators that all come together at SFO using shared infrastructure. Is there thinking that at some point these different operators of eVTOLs might also be looking at shared infrastructure as opposed to having different relationships with a port in this city or a real estate owner in another city?
Yeah, at least from like what I know, I'd say that there might be opportunity to work together. However, it seems a lot of them seem to keep their infrastructure and their plans and their everything kind of close to their chest. So we haven't gotten to the point where we might see some of that collaboration. Hopefully, and we will in the future, but like especially for many heliports are private, and if they're opened up, then anybody can come and land their eVTOL aircraft in those heliports and whatnot. So it hasn't been discussed, and it seems like all of them are very much competing against one another right now.
Thank you.
I can add a little bit to that as well. one of the biggest challenges for infrastructure is the electricity demand that each of those have. But not in addition to demand, right now the manufacturers have not agreed on a charging type, right? So every plug could be different than the other, and so then you would need individual stations at those vertiports for each different type of aircraft. And so I think what the overall industry is expecting out of these operators is at some point, let's come together and make it simple. You all need the electricity. Can we agree on a means to provide that electricity? So we're not there yet. They're not collaborating because they're holding everything close to the vest. This is very new technology. They don't want to play their hand to their competitors.
Member Kralik?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. On the potential impact slide, I think it's kind of ominous that when it comes to noise, it says that eVTOLs are quieter than helicopters, because we don't have a lot of helicopter traffic, but that it has a heads up that the noise exposure is going to accumulate even if each flight is quieter because of volume. But the good news is this governance piece, that state and local governments retain authority over vertiport construction, zoning, and permitting. So I think it's really important for all of us in each of our different communities to, if we do start to go down the contract road, and I know this is what the TWG is working on, is some suggested guidelines for all of us, but that we do restrict particularly the times of flights so that we're not allowing these to land and take off late at night.
Yeah, it's a great comment, Member Kralik. One of the biggest things about these eVTOLs is that, my memory serves me right, they're about 5 years off from FAA clearance to be landing and operating over at SFO. Is that correct, Mike?
I don't know the exact number. Bert's holding 325 as an estimate, but I think it was stated before that they're not FAA certified yet, right? They're going to be testing in the Middle East, and then the plan is to transition from the Middle East to the United States. But the anticipated timeline is 3 to 5 years.
Okay, so the 3 to 5 years time before they're able to get FAA clearance, meaning that these people are going to be wanting to operate these flights in our area. So obviously they're going to be looking at private developers to do private-public relationships with, to have vertipads. So they'll be landing them in our communities. And to your comment, Member Kralik, it's really important for us as a roundtable and a membership here to get our arms around this so we could do what's best to safeguard our own communities. I had one quick question about the commercial launch that was mentioned by Peter Sorensen. You had mentioned that it would be in 2026 to 2027, so at the end of this year, beginning of next year. And my understanding is that that commercial flight would be taking place in Dubai or overseas, or was there a flight that you're talking about that'll be happening in the United States or in our local area?
Yeah, so this is just what I have heard from the Department of Transportation, in that announcement for the EIPP is what they're targeting is at the end of 2026. If I'm allowed to interject my professional opinion, I don't think they're going to get there by then, but that is what they're targeting. I also know that, as much as we think that Dubai might be an easier access for these aircraft, it's actually, there's a lot of very stringent safety regulation there. So when talking to some of these OEMs, they're having just as many troubles with that as in, like, they're trying to get through the FAA certification before they could even fly in Dubai. So the US is actually in a good place to be the first location that these aircraft are flown. I know that the UK CAA, which is kind of like the UK's FAA, has finally had one singular regulatory flight that they've observed. But other than that, I do think that we're probably sometime off of that 2026 target, probably into 2027.
Can you also elaborate on Joby? I could have swore I saw something in the news maybe about a month or two ago that they started a pilot program to JFK. Is that correct?
Yeah, so for Joby specifically, So, I mean, a couple weeks ago, they had got to take a test flight in Manhattan. But so far as relation to the Bay Area, they haven't announced anything publicly that they're planning. They've planned things, I think, at JFK and LAX, but I have not seen anything about their Bay Area plans.
Got it. My last question I'll ask you before I pass it on to another member who is patiently waiting to comment. I see a, oh, Paul, you have a comment too? Okay, great. Last question for you is regarding the noise. You mentioned that these vehicles, these eVTOLs, are significantly quieter, but when I was down at the Air Noise Symposium, which took place in Las Vegas last year, I was told that that these vehicles are quite noisy during takeoff and landing. Is that correct?
So relative to a helicopter, if you've been near a helicopter taking off, you can tell even if it's 100 yards, couple hundred yards away. For these aircraft, they are at their loudest during takeoff and landing, so that is when they're going to be at the highest community impact. However, as soon as they start transitioning into flying, they are much quieter. So that's kind of like they're quieter at both takeoff and landing and in cruise than helicopters. However, they still are very loud during that takeoff and landing.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're transparent with the public because the presentation made it seem like these are whisper quiet when they're actually pretty loud. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it to a couple different members. I see Carol down there. Member Ford, why don't you go ahead and start us off with your comment?
Thank you. First of all, I have been to Salinas Airport where Archer is doing their practice takeoffs and landings, and they're not as loud as, say, a 747 or any of the other planes, and I think helicopters are really loud, so I think these are much quieter and more like planes that are at San Carlos. But quieter than that because they're electric engines, more like a car with an electric engine in which you don't even know that they're starting because, oh yeah, they're starting because they're so quiet. So I think there's going to be a surprise for how much quieter they are than one thinks now. And I did hear that they were in New York and New Jersey first for Joby, and Joby's in Marina now. This is a big business for California, and I think we should encourage that because it's a big economic generator. And Archer is in Salinas, and Joby is in Marina, and the other one, there's one in Mountain View. Is it Eve, or the other one named in Mountain View? So this is a big Bay Area business. Anyway, I think that airports like San Carlos is planning on where to put a vertiport. So they're not going to be all over. They're going to be more localized at our infrastructure that we have already.
Thanks for your comment, Member Ford. I know we have an MOU that's out there between Archer and a developer out in Oyster Point. So there are these MOUs that are going on. Once again, we're on the cutting edge of technology here. We want to embrace technology, but we also have the general public and our residents that are out here that we have to be very cognizant of. So great food for thought, and I'm sure the discussion will evolve. Member Vice Chair Gold, did you have a comment? Thanks.
Yes, thank you. I'm happy to hear they're not as loud as the 747, by the way. That's encouraging. On your, this is a question from the gentleman from HMMH. Sorry, I didn't get his name. Peter. On the governance slide that you showed, it mentions that, and we had this presentation, not this exact one, but we had a presentation similar to this a couple of years ago where we talked about the advent of these new transportation methods. But on this one, state and local governments retain authority over vertiport construction, zoning, and permitting. So you've got about, 20 elected officials, one ex-elected mayor sitting in the audience here. And this falls on our shoulders. And from what I understand from this presentation a couple of years ago, these vertiports don't take up a lot of space. And they envision them in office parks and they could be at Stanford Shopping Center or Hillsdale Mall or some, the Prologis office park in Brisbane or where, they could be anywhere. As long as you've got enough room, I think you need maybe half the size of a football field and you're in business. So one of the things that came up, my question, by the way, is one of these things that came up a couple of years ago was that some of the operators, not necessarily the manufacturers, are trying to secure property in various cities, towns, county property now, while they can, and then they sort of get the rights to it, and then they can sort of grandfather it in over time, not necessarily for a heliport, but for a vertiport. And is there anything that we can do as elected officials in our towns to at least gain some control over that, so that we don't find out suddenly there's a vertiport in a high school football field down the road from our houses that, you know, large members of the, big numbers of the community live by, that we just were unaware of? How are we sort of supposed to handle that?
Yeah. First, so the governance is that the local jurisdiction that does building permits must go through the process to allow a vertiport to be built and used. You can't circumvent that by buying the property. You still, you know, just as you as a property owner, if you wanted to build a house, you still need the jurisdiction to allow that permit to occur for you to build it. Same with these vertiports. And so the thing that the jurisdictions need to start being aware of is that they may very well be getting these use permits and design and construction permits for these vertiports, and to start to understand what they're really asking for and what it could entail.
So thanks for the clarification, but you know, what we've seen is, I mean, we know this being elected officials, the state's taken a pretty heavy hand in our land use locally, almost taking it out of our hands in some cases. So short of that, we still maintain the ultimate control over the permitted use, unless the state or the federal government.
Well, the state plays a role as well, just like it does currently with heliports, right? They need to the state will be certifying vertiports just as they certify heliports.
Okay, thank you.
Member Spear?
I think we all need to be cognizant of the fact that we could be preempted by federal legislation just like that. So it might be worth looking at identifying a legislator that could introduce legislation that could specifically say that you cannot preempt local jurisdictions as it relates to this, just to kind of put the first salvo out.
And another idea would be for the roundtable to have a discussion or a presentation. Gene, being that you're our consultant, I don't know if there could be a presentation around local legislation, something for the local electeds here that set policy and ordinances within their communities to have a better understanding of what exact control they have, what these advanced air mobilities may be used for. I'm assuming that some of it's going to be used for I would say possible military in some places. You'll have some for passenger, tourism, but it'd be helpful to understand what the different use cases are, and then what types of local legislation we have within our local electeds, being that these vertipads are seeking out relationships within our community, so outside of the FAA. So I don't know how everyone else would feel about that on the membership here, but I sure think it would be great if we could actually hear what these things sound like, rather than taking someone's word for it that it's quieter.
To the latter point, and we'd be happy to put something together on the legislative front as well, but on the latter point of hearing them, just as Carol said she experienced them, we could probably contact one or more of the manufacturers to see if we could actually, you know, it's not very far from here, so, you know, take a road trip down to Marina, where Joby is, or Salinas, where I think Archer is, and hear them.
If my memory serves me right, I believe NASA would be even closer to us, and they have an actual chamber where they could simulate what it would sound like.
Those are simulated ones, yes.
Yeah. So, Bert, I believe you were there when they
that's possible too. I have been to the Joby and the Archer ones already.
Okay.
I have not experienced the simulated noise from NASA though.
I think that would be worthwhile. Member Johnson? Go ahead.
I have a customer that I work on his car, and he knows I'm a pilot, so we have something in common. And he works for Archer, and he actually, we had this discussion, if you would like him to come to do a presentation or to tour the facility, he's more than willing. So this is with Archer now.
Yeah, Member Kralik, you had a comment?
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, I think this would be something that'd be beneficial for us.
Kaya
Yes.
Aiken, I took the wrong.
I didn't think you were Rob, so that's okay. Go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify from the supervisor. Supervisor, you're suggesting that we might want to identify a state, either assemblyman or senator, to carry a bill that would say local jurisdictions cannot be preempted. It might or might not work, but we'd be hitting the first ball over the net. Is that what I'm understanding you to say?
Oftentimes what you have when these industries are burgeoning and they want to make sure that they have freedom to grow is they'll go to the federal government. Think about how little control local jurisdiction have over cell towers, or Section 230 in the FCC, I think, that prevented any actions against all of these social media companies. So ideally, it would be at a federal level. So we might want to ask our Congress members, either Mullen or Liccardo, to kind of put the stake in the ground so that there's recognition that we're not going to sit back and watch this happen.
So thank you. If I could just ask you another follow-up question. Is that really viable that a federal congressman would say, we promise not to preempt a local jurisdiction? Aren't they always going to say?
No.
Oh.
The legislation would be that no one in this industry can preempt local jurisdiction over planning and permitting.
And if a congressman might carry that legislation just as easily as an assemblyman
I would suggest that it's almost more important on a federal level because they tend to go to the federal level to get the preemption.
Okay.
The industries tend to go there.
Sure. Thank you. That's a really great idea.
Any other member comments? So perhaps as an action item, what we do, staff suggested, is activate the legislative subcommittee to review this. Maybe they get an understanding of what Oregon and Florida are already doing with their legislation, and then put something together that we could bring forward to the full roundtable for presentation. Sound like a good idea? Got some nodding over here? Okay, great. We also have some public comment. See Remy loading up over there. Sue.
So thank you for the really great presentation and update on this subject. I'm, again, Ramey Tan, Pacifica. I'm concerned about a number of items, and I think I've expressed these before. One, the crash in D.C. with the helicopter and the commuter jet, was an eye-opening and it caused our issues with the staggered runways. So, I'm concerned even the viability of how close these, eVTOLs would be to just the commercial airline traffic here, which as, we expand all 3 airports, just the airspace is getting really congested. So, I'm not even sure how that's going to be resolved. And then, ideally, we'd like these guys to fly over the bay so they're not over our houses and our schools and, businesses. Again, and then so we're kind of squeezing, all of this, prime airspace. There's, I agree with, what was said about no late night flights, that I think that's really important to have. And we do need to, I agree, we do need to actually hear the actual aircraft. So, a tour, being arranged for the roundtable and members of the public would be, ideal. And actually just not the simulation, we actually want to hear the actual, aircraft, because I know a number of, parks have banned drones, just, the little tiny ones you fly remotely, because they're too noisy and disturb, the nature and the park experience, as well as being safety hazards. So, these things are car-sized, or, so they're going to be, significantly louder than the little remote-controlled drones that people have. So, that's a pretty big issue, and I think we need to be concerned about. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Tim.
Thank you. Next is Ms. Sue Decray.
Thank you. Degree, yes. I appreciate all the comments from all of you. I'm really gratified to hear them. And Pacificans never give up. I was on this council for about 16 years and exited in 2018. And I remember hearing about these things, and I became close to paranoid then. I'm trying not to have phobias, too bad, but I really think that you're it for us. You're very important, and the public is very important, because I grew up around helicopters. Now, granted, that was 100 years ago, but helicopters today, too, are still noisy, and I would want to know the science, okay? Because those are rotors. My son is a helicopter pilot. He wears the things in his ears. I'm very concerned about the noise, and one of our biggest things here is noise. And the FAA's focus is safety, thank God, and the other one is efficiency. And so what we fought with here when we were on the roundtable is we tried to get the FAA to understand that negative health impacts should at least rate parallel with efficiency. And we didn't win that battle, but thank you to Congressman Spear and Anna Eshoo and others. We have made progress. Thank you for the public and all. We have made better routes, flight routes, but we still do not have negative health impacts in the FAA as a significant, better than, more important than efficiency. And you're still dealing with efficiency, especially nowadays. Anything that has to do with money and profit, here it comes. So I think you're very wise, and I'm very happy to hear that you're willing to pull together and fight hard and empower the public, because we're the ones that are going to suffer. And it will come, and I watched this, I heard it long ago, and I am an investor, and I'm thinking, hey, Jetsons, why not? We got cell phones, let's be progressive. However, noise can kill, and that's the side effects that we don't want. And I'm a little concerned about your name tags. We went through a lot of trouble of picking an emblem for this SFO roundtable. There was, do you remember it, Christine? It was the house with the airplane over it. We chose that very, very strongly, because it isn't just folks in the airplane, it's those of us under it. And while I still have 25 seconds, regarding the area for noise, and long ago when airports first started, Fairmont area, we were in the circle, and now with the wonderful next gen, they threw us out of the circle. We're bad, bad, bad.
Thanks, Sue. Do we have any other public comments?
Thank you. We have one on Zoom, Ms. Darlene Yapley. Ms. Yapley.
Thank you very much. I'd like to make a few points. Number one, there was a comment made about federal legislation, which is great. I wanted everyone to be aware there is actually California legislation that has been proposed to limit local authority over vertiports. So I think California legislation is another important area. I was just recently sent that. Number two, it's great that the AAMs are less noisy than helicopters. That will definitely help communities with extensive helicopter traffic like New York. I think what's important for many Bay Area communities that don't have helicopters is that we encourage to understand what the noise level is, an LMAX noise level of a helicopter that's not compared to helicopters, to an AAM, and also that we encourage that they disclose how the volume of AAMs will have an impact. We all know the next gen happened because of concentration, and the issue is the count of events, not just an individual event. And lastly, the MOUs that were mentioned about the South San Francisco areas, my understanding, and this is a year ago, is that those MOUs are between the the OEM and the developer. It is not an MOU or an approval yet at the city level. Again, local authority has the ability to make the decision of a vertiport. They have the authority to determine the number of AAMs that will come in. They can determine the hours of operation of the local vertiport. They can determine the evaluation of the vertiport. So how many, when they evaluate it, doesn't have to follow the NEPA guidelines. So I think that's something to keep in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no other hands raised in the room.
All right, thank you very much. So that was a pretty healthy discussion on advanced air mobility. We obviously have some follow-up items to work with staff on to continue the dialogue. It's an exciting technology that's coming, but we need to stay ahead of the curve. So with that being said, we're going to move on to member updates. And at this time, I'm going to see if there are any members that would like to share any updates. No updates. Vice Chair Gold?
Yes. First, I just wanted to thank members of the public, especially from Pacifica, for coming out tonight. This is probably the biggest audience we've had since I've been involved in this. So thank you for coming out. I know it can be intimidating and difficult to come here and get everything said in 2 minutes, but you've now seen how it works, and I hope this won't be the last time we see you. I suspect it won't be the last time we hear from you. I did want to mention to the group that the technical working group, TWG, has been working on the Fly Quiet program, and we're very mindful, me especially, of the Brown Act and issues like that. And we're working pretty hard on making this a reality. I actually had a discussion with the airport director just tonight about trying to get this translation into the airlines and pilots, and he seems to be willing to help us with that, so that's actually a huge step. But I would also encourage your participation in this. We're having a workshop coming up, which will be out to the public, and we're trying to take input on this. And the main thing, as the chair said earlier in his report, is that we're trying to identify a smaller number of elements to the Fly Quiet program that are far more impactful and more meaningful to a specific and perhaps even larger group of people. So rather than having 15 or 20 elements that nobody cares about, I've said this before, we'd rather have 3 or 4 or 5 that really have an impact on certain communities. So this public workshop is coming up. I don't have the date off the top of my head. June 11th. It's going to be in Brisbane at the annex across from City Hall. But I would encourage attendance from that so that we can get as much input as possible on what our main goal here is to narrow those elements down. And our outside advisors have done a really great job giving us data on what elements are meaningful and can help us and how many people they impact. So I would encourage your participation in that. We work really hard on this. We're trying to have an impact and make sure that we don't want to go to Fly Quiet program number 5.0 down the 30 years from now and try to correct it. We're at 2.0 and we want to make it work. So your input would be very helpful. Thank you. Vanessa?
I think it's at 6 o'clock. The meeting will be publicly noticed, so it'll go out on our website and it'll go out to all of the members who are on our mailing list. Yeah, it's in Brisbane.
Yes, 25 Park Place in Brisbane, the Brisbane City Hall Annex.
It's right across from City Hall in Brisbane, and it'll be on the website, as they said. And by the way, Vanessa, thank you for all your work on this stuff. You've done a great job helping us out.
Also, that meeting will be, there will be a Zoom link, so if you can't make it and you'd like to join and listen and call in, you can also do that as well.
Also note that the meeting will be recorded for those that don't attend. You could be able to watch a recorded version of it later on. And I believe we had a comment from Gene, our consultant from HMMH.
No, I just wanted to say that at 6 p.m. is what I have on my calendar, so.
Okay, thanks. So I just want to make one last comment, if there's no other members that have anything to say. I just wanted to thank the staff at SFO, Birkenong, looking at you in particular. I know you've spent quite a bit of time offline. There's a lot of magic that's happening that not all the roundtable members are seeing. To Vice Chair Gold's comment, we're putting a lot of effort into this Fly Quiet 2.0 program. We didn't just want to roll something out that didn't have any substance. Oftentimes, it's very tough to move the needle, being that these activities that the airlines would be doing would be voluntary. There are FAA guidelines and safety measures that they have to abide by. So we are trying our best to work with everyone, whether it be members of the public, professionals, staff at SFO, to make the most out of this meeting. So we're really looking forward to a very productive June 11th, next Thursday, technical working group meeting, so we can bring back some results to the roundtable so you guys can see what FlyQuite 2.0 is and get your agreement on rolling it out. So that being said, any other comments from any membership? If there's no other comments, we're going to adjourn the meeting at 8:27 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
He's good at.
Thank you.